and engaged. I can't wait to get into this training. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Respectful, Responsible, and Engaged. 5 steps to end the battles and get your students excited to learn. We're going to talk about strategies that are going to help whether you're in person, online, both, don't know. I feel like it's the Dr. Seuss book, in a house with a mouse and a cat. Whatever happens, these strategies are going to help you. And so hopefully you can come out of here with a little bit of inspiration and excitement of things that will work or be adaptable no matter what reality you end up facing this fall. While you're here, while we're waiting to get started here in just a minute, I would love for you to introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about you. How long have you been teaching? What age subject do you teach? And the question that's on everybody's mind, I forgot to put it in this one. The question that's on everybody's mind is, what is your school doing this year? What is your school doing? So take just a second, answer those questions for us. We would love to hear from you. What is your school's plan? And of course, if you can just type in here that you can hear me, that's really helpful for me too, just so I make sure that the sound is working and everything is good to go. By the way, someone asked how long this training is. We'll try to keep it right to around an hour. I might stay on a little extra just to see if there's any additional questions, but right around an hour. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Okay, good. I'm so glad you can hear. I see a lot of hybrid, virtual, starting out virtual, distance learning. Yeah, there's just the spectrum. And a lot of us don't even know still what's going to happen. Some of you guys are doing both, still don't know. Yes, so crazy, right? What an unprecedented time. I'm going to put this up here just for those that for some reason can't hear us, that they'll know that they should check out their sound settings. All right, welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, we're introducing ourselves. Go ahead and share who you are, where you're from, and then what your school is doing or planning to do this year. We'd love to hear that as well. Help us just get to know you a little bit. Hold on one second. I lost my comments. Let me pull those right back up. We are going to talk about 5 steps to end the battles and get your students excited to learn. We're going to talk about strategies that are going to help whether you're in person, online, hybrid, or both. Because in this situation especially, we just cannot afford to have our students need to be engaged. We can't afford to have chaos. We can't afford to have students that are uninterested. We have to do what we can to engage them, to create a classroom culture that they want to show up to. Because especially when we're not seeing them every day, they really need to be inspired to pursue their own success. I'm going to talk about some strategies that you can use to make that happen. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is officially 8:30, and I'm sure there'll be more people joining us, but it's so awesome to see over 600 teachers here with us right now. That is just amazing. Welcome to everyone that's here. All right, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever felt like getting your students to respect each other and you is a bit of an uphill battle? Have you ever felt like you're kind of forcing your students to learn almost against their will? Do you ever wish that you and your students could actually be working together to accomplish great things rather than feeling like you're butting heads or, working at cross purposes? Well, if so, as you can see in the chat, you are definitely not alone. These are common concerns. And as I said, I think they're concerns that are even heightened when we are online or in the midst of a crisis or all these things. It makes it even more difficult. And what we want to do today is we want to talk about steps to earn our students' respect, build strong relationships, classroom community, whether it's online or in person, and a teamwork mentality, engage students so they're actually excited to learn, help them take responsibility for their own learning, and more. And as I said, I think these are so important, especially as we start off school. Last spring, it was complete panic mode, right? Crisis mode. anything was like great. Anything was better than nothing. We were just doing anything we could. But as we're starting into a new school year, that is a totally different scenario. And so we want to do what we can, regardless of all the challenges we're facing. It's not going to look the same as it normally does, but we're going to do what we can to set our students up for a successful year where they can learn and they can grow, and we can set that right tone. Real quick, let me introduce myself. My name is Linda Cardamus, and I taught middle school math at a Christian school in Ohio before I stepped away when I started having my own kids. And in that process, I ended up starting Teach for the Heart, which is a website that provides support, encouragement, and resources for teachers. I am the creator of Classroom Management 101, as well as Beyond Classroom Management. These are two of our signature online courses for teachers, as well as the author of Create Your Dream Classroom, Take Heart and Teach, and I've also compiled the Teach Uplifted Devotions. I'd love to hear how many of you are brand new to Teach for the Heart. This is your first time, doing anything with us, and how many of you have been around Teach for the Heart for a while. It's always cool to see the mix that we have here. All right, let's grab your notes and dive into it. As I'm doing that, I'm seeing that there is a question about, will there be a replay? Lord willing, if technology cooperates, we will have a replay, hopefully, with this. Oh, so great to see lots of first timers, lots of you that have been around before. That's awesome. And some of you guys that were here with us on Monday, welcome back. All right, we're going to get started. If you don't mind, I'm going to take just a moment and pray for us that we will have a productive, helpful time here tonight. Father, thank you so much for each teacher that is here, for the technology that allows us to do this. Please guide my words. May they be helpful. May each teacher walk away encouraged, feeling just a little bit more excited about this year, a little bit less stressed, and with some practical ideas that they can implement and help their students this year. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, let's dive in. Step 1. We need to earn our students' respect. If we want to build that classroom culture and work together, they need to respect us. And unfortunately, one of the fastest ways to lose respect is when there's chaos. Or online, it looks like the students that are on their phones rather than paying attention, right? So to earn their respect, we need to create a conducive learning environment, whether that's in person or online. And there's a few different ways to do this. We actually talked all about this in our training on Monday. So if you missed that, write down this URL, teachfortheheart.com/back-to-school-training. teachfortheheart.com/back-to-school-training. You can go back and watch the replay from Monday, but let me give you a few pointers in this direction. First of all, you want to have high expectations for your students. Now, I know this is hard this year because there are so many obstacles, but if we so we have to be realistic. But if we completely lower our expectations and expect that students are just not really going to do much, guess what? They're not really going to do much, okay? And we're not setting anyone up for success. So we need to raise the bar a little bit. We need to raise the bar a lot from what it was last spring. We really need to raise that bar and set the expectation that, no, you know what? We are going to do this. There's all these challenges, but we're going to make it work. I'm going to expect a lot from you this year. And we need to tell students explicitly, this is different than last spring. This is a new year. We're going to do this together. And so raise those expectations. Expect that your students are going to be engaged, they're going to be participating, and that they're going to succeed. We need to deal with problems as they occur. And deal with problems does not mean we're handing out tons of punishments, but it means we are training our students. We are teaching them, we are holding them to the expectations that we've set. I honestly believe simply, having good procedures and holding students to them, clear expectations, clear procedures, holding students to them is like the key to classroom management, to creating a chaos-free or at least chaos-light classroom, right? Just deal with problems as they occur. And I will say, just if you haven't thought about this, I don't know if this is probably a little bit the opposite of encouraging, but it's good for us to go into it with our eyes open. Kids have had way less structure these last 6 months. I mean, for many cases, when they show back up in school, in person or online, it will have been 6 months since they've been in an in-person classroom. They may typically, a lot of the typical structures, if they're used to going to church, if they're used to going to daycare, those may not have been happening for them. If they're used to doing camps, they've had way less structure. And so getting back into a structured environment, in person or online, is going to be challenging. So we need to anticipate that, but we need to not let that be an excuse. We need to help them break bad habits and get in the habit of focusing. So we need to deal with problems when they happen. We talked a lot about strategies to do that in that back to school training, teachfortheheart.com/back to school training. We also teach it in Classroom Management 101, but just high level overview, just simply correct things. Make students do it the way that they're supposed to. Just simply being on top of things, just simply noticing problems and correcting them is huge. Doesn't have to mean big punishments. Being consistent is key, right? What I said, if you have an expectation, for example, that students are going to not be on their phones, whether they're in person or online, or they're only to use their phones for specific school-related things when we're actually doing something with it, then be consistent. Every time you see it, address it consistently. It's going to help kids break bad habits faster. All your expectations be really consistent in the beginning of the year, especially. I alluded to procedures before. This is so important. You need to think about procedures, whether you're in person or online. Think about the last time you were in that situation, whether it was before the pandemic or that last spring, and think, what did not go well? How do I want to handle this differently? If you're online, you need procedures for how students should arrive, which they should do when they arrive in class, when they should be muted and when not, when they're allowed to talk in virtual class and when they're not. What should they do with their homework? There's almost everything you do in person, there's a corresponding virtual procedure. So think that through. Once again, last spring we were winging it. This year, we don't want to wing it. We want to show up with some of these plans in place. Now, if you don't have to have it all planned now, some of these things are going to evolve between now and the first day of school, depending on when school starts for you. But before school starts, you want to think it through. And then you need to clearly teach procedures to your students. It's not enough to simply tell them what to do. You want to practice it together. And when they do it wrong, you need to correct it and insist that they redo it correctly. So correct and redo. We talked way more about this in our training on Monday, but that's really important. Here's another one. Set rules you can actually enforce. A way to lose respect quickly is setting rules that you can't actually enforce. So rules that you can enforce, especially, are I statements. For example, I give things that are, I give full credit to work that's turned in on time. That's an I statement. It's what I do. And students then, it's clear what's going to happen to them, but it's an I statement. I can enforce what I do. I call on students who raise their hand, virtually or in person. So that means if you blurt something out, I'm not calling on you. Or maybe you have a statement, I mute students who blurt things out if you're online, right? I don't argue with students. Okay. Or I only argue on the weekends. Okay. Things like this. So think about how you can do that. Have rules that you can actually enforce. And a lot of that, changing things to I statements, telling students how you will respond in various situations, can be really helpful. I'll listen when you talk respect, things like that. And then I alluded to this in the last point, don't argue with your students. Did you know it takes two people to argue? So if a student is arguing with you, you don't have to continue that argument. You can simply say something like, I care too much to argue with you, or I care about you too much to argue with you. And then end the conversation. If you're in person, you turn around and walk away. If you're online, you say, I care too much to argue with you. I expect to see this on my desk tomorrow, or I expect that you'll turn this in tomorrow. And just reinforce your expectation and then say bye. Okay. You don't have to argue with your students. You just don't have to engage. Just disengage. It's really powerful. All right. Other ways, if you need more help earning their respect, I don't know why I have Classroom Management mini course on here. I recommend for right now, we do have a mini course, but right now I recommend our back to school training. So head to teachfortheheart.com/back to school training, teachfortheheart.com/back to school training. And that will be your most helpful. It will really help you figure this out. So if I said these things and you're like, man, Linda, I need more of those tips, head to teachfortheheart.com/back-to-school training. And of course, we also have our Classroom Management 101 course that's super helpful. All right, let's pause for a second and make it personal. What's one tweak make to improve your classroom management, whether in person or online at the start of school this year? There's probably a lot, but I really want you to at least one, because sometimes when you have too many ideas, you forget about them all. So think of one, jot it down, and then share it in the chat. What's one tweak you can make to improve your classroom management? Hannah says, I highly recommend Classroom Management 101. So glad you found it helpful. Use I statements, be consistent. I love these. Simplify. Great. Thank you guys so much for sharing these. These are awesome. All right, as you guys are writing those in, I'm going to move on to step 2. We're going to build strong relationships, classroom community, and a teamwork mentality. There are so many ways to do this, but I'm just going to give you a couple of them right now. Let me give you these again. I think you might have some blanks for these. We're going to build strong relationships, classroom community, and a teamwork mentality. And once again, even if whether your classroom is in person or online, if you're social distancing, it's still really important to create that community environment. You might have to work extra hard at it this year, but it will pay off possibly even more, because we've all been missing that community. We've been missing those relationships. It hasn't been the same as normal. And so I think there's really an opportunity here where students might really be excited for this aspect of school even more than just a typical, coming back from summer. And so even with the obstacles of social distancing and not always being together, or if you're online, there's still a great opportunity to create a vibrant classroom community. So let's talk about some specific ways to do this. First of all, there's a strategy called the 2x10 strategy. How many of you guys have heard about this before? In this strategy, you're going to identify your most challenging students. So this is something you'd probably start a couple weeks into school once you've already kind of got a picture of, okay, who might be a little bit challenging. And what you're going to do is commit to talk to them for 2 minutes a day for 10 days. And you talk to them about anything. Ideally not school related, something they're interested in, something they care about, or just something you notice. If you don't have time for 2 minutes a day, you can pare this down to just a simple, it's called the 1-sentence intervention from Love and Logic. It's just, you simply tell them something you noticed about them. I noticed you like drawing. I noticed you really like baseball. I noticed that you wear hats a lot. I noticed that. Either one of these, talking to them 2 minutes a day, or over the course of 10 days, telling them different things you notice about them, it helps them know that you see them as more than just a troublesome student. You see them as a person, who they really are. And it's really powerful for building relationships. Now, if you're online, it might be harder to actually find a student and talk to them, but you can totally still do this. It just takes a little more intentionality, and it might look a little different. You might ask a student, hey, can you stay on real quick after class? I just want to tell you something real quick. You might send them an email. You can create a quick video with your iPhone and just send it to them. You can drop them a note or put something in the chat box to them. There's lots of ways to do it. You just it might just look slightly different, or even pick up the phone, right? Good old fashioned telephone. All right, next strategy is using empathy. It's really I love this I'm a math person, so I love this math equation. Accountability plus empathy equals impact. Here's what this means. We have to hold our students accountable, all right? We cannot be a pushover, let things go, not deal with things, let them get away with not doing what they're supposed to. But when we hold them accountable, if we do so in an empathetic manner, that creates powerful impact, all right? Because what happens a lot of times is when we do have to correct a student, or in some cases enforce a consequence, if we do that with an angry tone, a frustrated tone, or even with a matter-of-fact tone, then sometimes our students are very distracted. They latch onto the fact that we were angry or we were mean in their estimation, and they focus on that rather than focusing on what they did and how they should have made a better choice and how they need to make a different choice next time. Now, we can't control how they think or what they focus on, but we can increase the odds of them focusing on the right thing and decrease the odds of them getting distracted by our reaction by using empathy. So here's a question. What is your tone like when you have to enforce a consequence? Is it angry? Is it yelling? That is like the worst, okay? But sometimes I go real matter of fact. Well, this is what it is. You did this. This is what's happening. That's not the best either. When we have an empathetic tone, ooh, this is tough. It shows them that we care. It shows them that we don't love this, but we love them enough that we're going to hold them accountable. And this is something I need to be reminded of over and over. So here's another thing. What's your default response when students complain or give excuses or argue with you? Do you get frustrated? Do you get upset? Do you kind of get a little bit combative or defensive? Or can you respond with empathy? Ooh, that's tough that you had that your basketball game, you got home really late from your basketball game last night. But I give full credit that for work that's turned in on time. All right. So you see how that's paired together. Empathy. Ooh, that's tough. That's a tough situation. But I statement, this is what I do. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm not making exceptions. And that's where the impact comes. Now, quick side note, does this mean you never give exceptions? No. Okay. Especially this year, there are going to be extenuating circumstances. Extenuating circumstances merit exceptions, but not everything is in extenuating circumstances. Many, many, many times, I don't know what the percentage will be, 80, 90% of the time, they're excuses, they're reasons, but they're not good excuses. It's not extenuating circumstances. Remember, we want to teach our students resilience. We want to teach them problem-solving skills. And if we let them out of everything every time something's hard, they're not going to learn that. Okay, so just because something's tough doesn't mean we completely lower the bar. We use empathy plus accountability to make impact. So that's the key. Leading with empathy shows students that we are on the same team. So what does this look like? One of the easiest things is to pick a go-to empathetic phrase or sound. So you notice I just said, ooh, that's tough. You can kind of have that as your thing that you say over and over. Oh man, that's tough. Or, oh, wow. It could even just be a sound. Oh, all right. So have your kind of go-to phrase that fits with your personality that you can say every time as you develop the habit of using empathy with your students. Here's another strategy to help build classroom community, and that is the morning meeting. I would love to hear how many of you guys typically use morning meetings in your classroom. Sorry, my computer that I have the, let me grab the comments real quick. My second computer keeps turning off and I lose your guys' comments. Okay, you're back. All right, so if you use morning meetings, if you're not familiar with these, oh good, lots of you guys do. They are a meeting that you have with your class. And this looks different depending on your age. If you're in a self-contained classroom, you have the same students all day, then you could actually do it every morning. If you don't see your students as often, you can do it less often. So let's say you're using a hybrid model this year and you're going to see your students less often. It depends on that situation. You might do it every morning that they're there. You might do it once a week. Do what makes sense, okay? So you don't have to do it every morning is my point. If you're in secondary, you might do a morning meeting with your class advisory group. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the morning. You could do it whenever you have homeroom or class advisory. Or if you have like a block schedule, you could do an abbreviated 10-minute meeting once a week or every other day. So you can get creative with this. So let me share a little bit about it. In a morning meeting, a lot of things happen. Students greet each other. They share a little bit about what's happening in their lives. This is huge. I think, honestly, I feel like these morning meetings are going to be worth it more this year than ever because students need to process everything that's happening. So it helps you get to know each other, even if you have to be distant. It helps you get to know everybody, helps you share. And you also practice skills, all kinds of skills. You're practicing communication skills, you're practicing study skills, you're practicing social emotional skills, and you're practicing actual academic skills based on whatever you're learning. So you're doing a lot and you're incorporating it all in together. As I said, students are learning communication skills, social skills, academic skills, all paired together. And it really helps you build a community of mutual respect. So I don't have time. I could do an entire training just on morning meetings. We have a whole module on it in Beyond Classroom Management 101. I'm sorry, in Beyond Classroom Management, which is our sequel to Classroom Management 101. Or you can Google morning meetings and you'll find a ton of resources on it. But you really might want to consider this year, is this a worthwhile investment? I would highly recommend looking into it because I know our time is extra precious this year, but I think this is going to be a really important piece. I think when we serve our students in this way, when we build the community in this way, and like I said, you're teaching explicit skills that are going to help them in school and in life, I think it might be a worthwhile investment, especially this year with everything that's happening, to help inspire them to do more the rest of the day and the rest of the week when you're not with them. So definitely something to consider. And then remember, in secondary, you could do that. It just depends. If you have, 6 different classes and you have them, 40 minutes a day and even less with hybrid learning or something like that, you're not going to have time to do a full 20-minute morning meeting every class. That's crazy. But like I said, maybe a 10-minute morning meeting once a week would be worth it. Or in secondary, maybe you just do it with your class advisory group or your homeroom group, and you create that community for them. Or like I said, if you have a block schedule where you're meeting with students on a longer period of time, it might make sense there. Oh, I love, Alana, you're saying you use Flipgrid to do morning meeting type activities. That's a great modification. And once again, of course, this can be done virtually, right? You can do morning meetings or class meetings virtually. Absolutely. That totally works. All right, I gave you a lot of strategies. Look back over the notes. We talked about 2x10. We talked about using empathy. We talked about morning meetings. Which of these strategies do you most want to try? Write it down, and I'd love to hear about it a little bit in here. And once again, as you're doing that, I just touched on morning meeting. My goal is to just pique your interest if it's something you want to look into. But as I said, I know I didn't have time to teach it. We do teach it in way more detail in Beyond Classroom Management. And as I said, the morning meeting book is great for elementary. And there's a book called The Responsive Class Advisory, I think is what it's called, for secondary. Oh, so many of you saying empathy, 2x10, I notice statements, morning meetings. Oh, great. So exciting to see these things that we're actually going to be putting into effect. All right. If you have questions, you can share them now, or we're also going to have a Q&A section at the end. I'm going to go ahead and keep moving right now because I have a lot left to go and we're almost halfway through our time. Step 3, let's talk about some ways to engage our students, which is critical in person or online. Let me ask you this. Have you ever seen your students actually excited to learn? If you have, it's like this Cloud9, like, yes, experience. It's like the most amazing feeling ever. So how can we create more of this? Well, first question, who does the most work in your class? If it's you, if you are the one doing the lecturing and students are kind of sitting passively by, they're not learning as much as they could, because the one who is working is the one who is learning. And this is something to keep in mind too. If your plan is to just create, is creating videos for students to watch, that's very passive. Now, we have to do the best we can with the situation. I'm not saying you can't do that, okay? But just think about that. The fact the one who is working is the one who's doing the most learning. So we always want to be looking for ways to get our students more and more involved. Now, though, there's 2 pitfalls when it comes to this. Pitfall number 1 is what I said, all lecture. Your classroom, virtual or in person, should not be all lecture. Like every day you teach and students listen and take notes, or students watch a video and take notes. That should not be all that they do. Okay. They need to also be doing things in class. But there is another pitfall on the opposite. Some people, in an effort to avoid the pitfall of all lecture, go the opposite way, and there is no direct instruction. They just figure, okay, I'll let students figure it all out. I'll just give them a packet, or I'll just say, here's the lesson. You figure it out. That's not really wise either, okay? What we want to do instead is we need a combination of direct instruction and then students applying and practicing what they're doing. And this is key in person or online. You need to use this structure, this combination, whether you're doing things in person, whether you're doing things online. They need the direct instruction to set them up for success, and then they need to apply it and practice it to actually learn it and to be more engaged in what they're doing. So we're going to go through each of these areas. Let's start with direct instruction. What are some ways you can make direct instruction engaging? Well, first of all, make it interesting. Let your passion shine through. If you love math, your students should know it. They should think you're a total nerd, right? If you love science, let them see that. Let them see how great reading is. Let your passion shine through. Remember, the goal isn't necessarily to make things fun, but to make them thought-provoking and relevant. So sometimes when we hear the word engaging, we think like fun and exciting. And that can be engaging, but if something is thought-provoking, if students are really thinking about a question, that's very engaging. If something is relevant to their lives or to what's happening in the world, that is engaging. So it doesn't necessarily have to only be fun. It can also be thought-provoking and relevant. So when you're giving a lesson, when you're putting together a lesson plan for a lecture or a video, whatever you're doing, ask yourself, so what? So what about this? So what? What does interest? Who cares about interest? When I'm in math, compound interest or simple interest, who cares? We're studying history and we're studying the War of 1812. Who cares? So what? Why does this matter? And you're asking yourself that critically because you want to come up with the answer. Why does this matter? Why is this important? What does it have to do with anything? And when you come up with that, that's what you want to incorporate in your lesson. And you can tell them that, or you can use it then in the accompanying section. So you want to incorporate that into what you're teaching your students, the why. You can also find ways to get your students involved in your direct instruction, in your lectures or your videos. One simple way is to incorporate writing. So when you ask a question, in a class, and students answer, there's a couple students thinking, but a lot of other students are kind of just not thinking, right? They're just kind of, zoning out or half paying attention. But when you ask a question I want everyone to write down why you think that, George Washington chose that night to cross the Delaware. Everyone write it down. Everyone is writing it down. Everyone is involved. Okay. Or if you say, I want you to find one math problem. I want you to find or write down one thing that you learned so far in this lesson today. And everyone writes it down. Okay. Everyone is involved. Once again, remember, the one who is working is the one who is learning. So you've stopped working and they've all started working. And then you can call on a couple of students if you want. Micro lectures and partner sharing are a great tool. This definitely works in person, but you can adapt it for online too. These are by whole brain teaching. That's what that acronym is at the end. The idea is that you break up your longer lecture into tiny little segments. So you teach one thing at a time, and then you say, turn and explain to the person next to you what you just learned. And it might be a little louder if desks are further apart, but you can still do this. Turn and share what you learned, and you can walk around and listen for common misconceptions that you can correct. So once again, it gets students involved. They have to stop and think and then share with the person next to them what they learned. You can still do this in virtual classrooms, and it doesn't even have to be that complicated. You can have students have each other's phone numbers and say, text each other what you learned, or put in the chat box what you just learned, or whatever, or grab Flipgrid and share with me what you just learned. Use the technology to your advantage and how you can still do things like this. This is a little bit harder this year, but there's still ways to add movement. In lower grade levels, they can use hand motions. In some cases, you can get your students up and walking around. Any way you can add movement, even online, you can have students stand up and do things at their homes. So add movement wherever you can. All right, those were all ideas for direct instruction. Now let's talk about practice. So after you give direct instruction, students need to either practice or apply. So practice is typically more with things like math or a specific skill in science or writing, things like that, where they actually need to practice and develop a skill. So you need to teach the skill first and practice it together before asking them to practice it on their own. Because one of the fastest ways to disengage your students is if they're frustrated, if they feel like they don't know what they're doing. So make sure you follow that process. Teach it first, do one or two together or practice this skill together, then have them practice it on their own. Do what you can to not have only worksheets, okay? I feel like there's been a little bit of a war against worksheets. I do not think that we need to throw out all worksheets. Worksheets have their place. Sometimes you just need to get in there and practice. But you can look for ways to switch things up for engaging activities. And there's a lot of things that you can do with this. If you go to, let's see, here's the URL, teachfortheheart.com/rethink worksheets. I have a bunch of ideas there of some ways you can do it, but I'll share two with you right now. One is reciprocal learning. So you can take an existing worksheet and pair two students together and say, student number one, and give the students the answers to different sets of problems. So one student, you give the answer, student number one in the group has all the answers to the even problems. Students number two in the group has all the answers to the odd problems. And what they do is, for going back and forth, for each question, one is the student and the other is the tutor or the teacher. So the one that has the answer is there to answer questions and to guide the student to get the right answer, and they tell them if they got it right or not. And then they switch. So this really helps engage students because they're doing both. And when you're teaching, when you're trying to help or explain to someone else, or you're trying to find someone else's mistake, you're using your brain in different ways and you're making better connections. And it's just more interesting than saying, here's 20 problems to practice. Kahoot is super fun. If you haven't used Kahoot, it is great. It works in person or online. It's a way to gamify practice or review. You should definitely check that out. There's a lot of other things on teachfortheheart.com/rethink worksheets. There's more ideas there. So head over there, write that URL down, check it out later for some ways to kind of take existing worksheets and just make them a little bit more interesting. All right, so we talked about direct instruction. We talked about practice. How about application? How can we help students apply what they're learning? Well, here's an important question. In your class, do students just learn about things, or do they actually do something with what they're learning? Okay, this is especially relevant in subjects that aren't as much on practice. So things like history, or like history class, or certain science classes where you're not like doing problems and stuff, you're just learning about things. Are students applying that, or are they just learning about it? We remember, you guys know this, we remember so much more about what we do than what we just hear or see. And so if we can get students to do something, they're going to be way more engaged and they're going to remember it way better. Now, huge caveat. We are not talking about projects for project's sake. My friend Jennifer Gonzalez from Cult of Pedagogy, I love this. She has an article where she talks about the Grecian Urn Project. And she talks about this situation where students were studying Grecian history. And so their teacher had them create these beautiful Grecian urns, these like vases essentially. And they decorated them and they did the pottery, and they spent weeks, 2 weeks, I don't know how long, like a long time, many class periods on these urns. But at the end of it, you look back and say, well, what did you learn about Grecian culture? Very little. They learned very little about Grecian culture, probably 10 minutes worth of culture over a 2 or 3 week period of making these urns. That is not a good idea. Projects cannot be Grecian urn projects. We don't have time for that. That's an art project, right? That is not a history project. So we're not talking about doing projects for the sake of doing it. We're talking about, are there projects that can really or help students learn? And some of you guys, honestly, this year might be a year to experiment with project-based learning. I mean, it really might be, especially if you're in a unique situation, having students, rather than simply constantly doing lectures on history, maybe you give a short lecture and then you have them research and then they create videos or a podcast episode or slideshows, or like they actually put together something that teaches about certain events. Like having students put together lessons and present them to each other. Like how much more powerful could that be? And it could really be maybe the only way you even survive this year with everything that's going on. So that's just an idea. That's a more bigger idea. And I'm going to give you some smaller ideas in a second, but this might be the year for it. Even there's a lot of challenges this year, but there's also a lot of possibilities. If you start asking yourself, what possibilities does my situation open up that maybe I would have been afraid, or I would have felt like I couldn't try in a typical situation, then it can be a little bit exciting. So here's some simpler. So you can do project-based learning. It's awesome. You can look into it, but it is like a bigger thing, and you might not feel up to it. You don't have to start there. You can start with way simpler things. So just ask yourself this question: what would help my students better grasp and remember this concept? And it can be simple things like small applications. It can be a quick writing thing, okay? You can take, let's say you're studying a historical figure, and you can say, how do you think this historical figure would have responded to COVID? What do you think they would have done? And, and tell them, pull in what we learned about them and how they responded to this or this, and just give them 3 minutes to write it down, then share it with a friend, or if you can do it with videos, have them answer this question on a Flipgrid. Okay. You can have small group discussions, same thing, get in a group and discuss this. It can be simple application activities, such as, write a postcard from so-and-so to so-and-so. It could be a literary figure. Pick one of your favorite characters from this novel and have them write a postcard to another character in the novel or in history, or whatever the case is. So they can be really simple application activities that just help them synthesize and use what they're doing, use what they're learning. Does that make sense? All right, last thought into here is, in order to engage the students, we have to help them be successful. Because as I said before, when students feel like they're not doing well, when they don't know what to do, or they feel like they aren't understanding, that is what disengages them the most. And when they feel like they're doing well, it really increases their engagement. So it's so important to give students clear explanations, both of your content and make it clear what they're doing. So be really focused on making things clear for them. If a lot of students have questions, don't get frustrated with that. Realize, man, maybe I didn't explain this well. I explain it again or in a different way. When you're doing projects, scaffold them for the students. If you have I'm not talking about the 5-minute activities, you just tell them. But if you're doing a bigger project, don't just say, okay, I want you to do this and go have at it. Give them clear steps and clear process, scaffold it for them to help them be successful, especially if they're online and you're not going to see them for like 3 days, or you're not checking in with them on a regular basis. Make sure you scaffold it and have a way that you can easily check on the progress. This is a little bit pet peeve of mine, but it's another way that you really do not want to frustrate your students. Make sure your assessments match what you've taught in practice, okay? So if you're using assessments that are made by someone else, make sure then you need to look at those assessments and make sure that you teach and practice what's on them. Okay. If you don't want to do that, then you need to make your own assessments. Whatever is being assessed has to match what you've taught and practiced. Okay. However you do that, it has to match. Otherwise, it's not fair for the kids, and it's extremely frustrating and it's disengaging. If I feel like if I, as a student, and I've had this happen as I'm a student, realize that what I'm learning in class isn't matching what's on the test, then why should I listen in class? Now, obviously, I should have that intrinsic motivation, but you're really making it harder for them to stay motivated. All right, that was a whole lot under that section. So look back over your notes. What is one way you can better engage your students? Remember, I just gave you a whole bunch of ideas. You can incorporate more than one, but pick out one that you definitely want to do, because otherwise this will get lost in the shuffle. And I forgot to say this at the beginning. This presentation, this training is not meant for you to try to do everything in here. Okay, that would feel overwhelming. It's meant for you to pick out your favorite ideas that you really want to do, the things that resonate with you, and do that. Okay. So yeah, you do not have to do all of this. It would be unrealistic to think you could do all of this, like add all of this in right away. Okay. Just you're trying to pick out your favorite ideas. All right. We're saying reciprocal learning, project-based learning, Kahoot. Try the we do, I do, we do, you do, rethinking worksheets, clear steps. Love the postcard idea, Zoom breakout rooms. Yes. Yeah. I didn't even talk about Zoom breakout rooms, but yeah, if you have that ability, definitely use that. All right, let's move on to step 4. Help students take responsibility for their own learning and actions. It's so important to believe in your students. So let me ask you this. Do you assume your students are going to fail before they even start? Let me go back and give you that. Help students take responsibility for their own learning and actions. This is so important because when students are responsible for their own learning, they care about their own learning, they are so much more engaged, they have so much a better opportunity to be successful. So it's so important to believe in all of our students. So as I said, do you ever catch yourself assuming students are going to fail before you even start? That can be natural, but it sounds like this. Oh man, like they're going to have a really hard time with this, or I don't know if they're going to be able to do this, or this is not going to go well. If you assume that, it is totally going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I know sometimes it feels like that. When you catch yourself saying that, say, you know what? I choose to believe in their potential, even if they're not there yet. Okay. So say they may struggle with this now, but I really believe they can do it. So I'm going to believe in them. I'm going to push them. I'm going to call them up to this. Maybe by the end of the year, they'll do well with this. We're going to take a step in that direction today. Does that make sense? Always picture yourself as I'm helping them outreach what they will eventually be able to do. You have to believe in them or they will never believe in themselves. And then, like I said, act on that belief now, even if you don't see results now. Believe in what they can be, act on that belief now, and just kind of have that internal faith that they can get there. Choose to believe in them. Let natural consequences teach is a great way to encourage responsibility. So sometimes we're afraid of our students making bad choices or making mistakes. Like we're afraid of them turning in something in late or not studying or whatever it is. But we really don't need to be afraid of that. It's sometimes better for students to make mistakes now and learn from them. But we have to let those natural consequences happen. We have to enforce those natural consequences so that they learn this was a bad choice. I need to make a different choice next time. But what happens, I know this is me, I often want to bail my students out. I feel bad. I don't like that they don't get full credit or that they did bad on the test or whatever the case. I want to bail them out. I don't want to hold them accountable. That is my natural inclination. But when I bail them out, I'm robbing them of the opportunity to learn from this situation. So unless there truly are extenuating circumstances, we can't bail them out. So for example, a student does not complete a project on time and there's not any crazy extenuating circumstance. They just, they have their reasons. We went out of, we did this, we did that, this happened, or my computer, I forgot to plug in my computer and it didn't work. Whatever their situation is, how do you deal with that, right? You let the natural consequences teach. Remember, empathy. Oh, that is hard. I statement. I give full credit to work that's turned in on time. A bit of encouragement. Thankfully, this is only one grade out of all the grades this quarter. So I know you'll make better choices and put yourself in a better position next time. Show that you believe in them. See how that works together? But we don't bail them out. Another thing we can do is guide students to solve their own problems. So let's say a student comes to you with a situation, hey, Mrs. Cardamus, I know that there's homework tonight, but I have a game or I have this activity that I'm supposed to do. Well, a lot of times we as teachers feel like I have to come up with a solution for them, but inevitably students don't like any of our solutions and they complain about this. That my son does this all the time. He'll ask me for help with something and I'll tell him what he should do and he doesn't like any of my ideas, okay? There is something in us teachers that wants to solve everyone's problems, but it's better to teach them how to solve their own problems. So here's the steps for this. These come from Love and Logic. Number 1, empathize. Ooh, that's tough that you have a game tonight. That does present a challenge. Then ask, what are you going to do? They came to you for an answer. You ask them, what are you going to do? If they look confused, you can ask them, would you like to hear what others have tried? And if they say yes, give 2 to 3 examples. So you might say, well, some students, and some of them might even be bad examples. Well, some students decide just not to do their homework and take a 0 on the assignment. How would that work for you? Mrs. Cardamus, okay, well, some students decide to really buckle down in their study hall and get it done then. How would that work for you? Well, some students decide to get up really early in the morning and plan to do it then. What do you think about that? Oh, I don't know. Here's the key. You're not trying to find a perfect solution for them. You're modeling for them how to think of their own solutions. You're modeling the thought process for them. And then here's the key. You finish by saying, well, I wish you success. Let me know how it goes. And you walk away or you end the conversation, leaving the ball exactly in their court. All right. So the ball is in their court. They are responsible to make the decision. And what happens if they make a bad decision? Well, you let the natural consequences teach. If they decide that they're going to, let's say they decide I'm going to get up early in the morning, but then they don't set their alarm or they sleep through their alarm and they come in, oh, Mrs. Cardamus, I was going to do it in the morning, but I didn't set my alarm and my alarm went off and I don't even remember it. And next thing I knew I was late to school and I didn't get to do it. Ooh, that's tough. Well, I give full credit to work that's turned in on time, but thankfully you can still get partial credit if you turn it in tomorrow. So hopefully I'll see it on my desk tomorrow. Right? Hold them accountable. And it'll help them learn to make a better decision next time. All right, we're running out of time, but I still have a couple really exciting things left. Another thing we can do is help students set and reach goals. I think this might be extra powerful this year, especially with students that you're not seeing every day. If you're in a hybrid situation, distance learning, help them set their own goals and monitor their own progress. So when you're teaching students, you actually want to teach them how to set goals. And the younger they are, or the earlier they are in this process, meaning like the first time you have them set goals, you're going to really do a lot of this with them. As students get older or as they get more practice, they can do more of this on their own. So step 1, make sure they set goals that are specific and realistic, okay? A goal, they should be able to know whether it's done or not. It needs to be measurable. It can't just be like, get better at reading. You don't ever know if you accomplish that. It needs to be specific and realistic, not too hard, not too easy. Something that is growth, but not impossible. Then you take that goal and you help them translate it into action steps. So let's say they do want to improve their reading level from 3.1 to 3.4 by the end of October. See how that's specific, okay? It has a date and all that. You guys know what SMART goals are. So you want to translate that into action steps. Well, how are we going to do this? Well, I'm going to read a book each day. And I'm going to take an AR test once a week or whatever it is, okay? So these are action steps. This is really important because otherwise the goal is nebulous and students might not know what to do with it. So translating it then, whether you have them do it, whether you help them come up with the action steps, or whether you pair them with a partner and help them work with a partner to do action steps. It gives them actual to-dos. Slight aside here real quick. Remember, you can pair people up virtually. They can, if depending on the age of the students, you can use breakout rooms. You can have them contact each other via email or phone, depending on the age of your student. So there's a lot of ways to connect students, and I encourage that. Develop that community even if people aren't together in person. The next step is to track progress. Have ways for students to track their progress, all right? So on a regular basis, whether it's every day, every week, they should be tracking their progress on their goal. And then finally, set up regular accountability. So they need to have a cadence of accountability, whether it's a weekly, bi-weekly meeting. It can be, if you only have a few students, then this can be with you. You can schedule times for them to meet with you. If not, then you can pair them with each other to have some accountability. So at this meeting, you meet, you go over what's happening, you try to figure out, are these still the right action steps or should they be different? And is there any help I need to accomplish these goals? All right, we talked about so many ways to help students take responsibility for their own learning. Which one resonated the most with you? What is one change you'd like to make to help students take responsibility for their own learning? While you guys are doing that, I see a question here real quick. Are certificates for completion going to be available? Yes, we will have a certificate of completion available. Yes, we will have that here for you in just a few minutes because we are almost done. believe in their potential, goal setting, question the questioner, SMART goals, empathy, problem solving. I love all this. I love seeing you guys' takeaway. That's awesome. There are so many more strategies I wish we had time for. We could talk about a restorative approach, teaching the habits and the skills they need for success, what to do with unmotivated students, but we are running out of time. So let's get to step 5. Step 5 is to make a plan for continuous improvement. Make a plan for continuous improvement. Here's the thing. There are so many strategies to try. I have zoomed through a million strategies just in this training, and I've only scratched the surface. And you just can't implement them all at once. It's just too much. But each one is going to make a difference. If you come away from here and you only implement one strategy from tonight, it's going to help. It's going to make a difference. But they're even more powerful when you stack them on top of each other. And this will not happen overnight. Okay, the start of school is a powerful opportunity. And especially this year with everything so different, you can probably incorporate quite a few of these into what you do. But you're not going to be able to incorporate all of them right away. It will be too overwhelming. I would really say don't even try to do all of them right away. You'll get overwhelmed. It will feel too different from what you're used to. Okay, so the key is to gradually stack these, to pick your favorites to implement now, and to keep these notes and come back later. Make a note in your calendar in September and October to come back and try some more. So we want to continually add strategies. So the question is, though, how do we do this? How do you know which strategies to implement? And then how do you not lose sight of this goal in all the busyness? And we know this fall is going to be crazy. This year is going to be crazy. But even beyond that, what about next year and the year after that? How do you not forget about this? You need a plan. There's a couple of different ways to do this. So you can make your own plan. So it starts with listing all the strategies you want to try. So you can start with these notes that you have right here. You can just circle the ones that you like, or you can make your own list. And then come up with a system to revisit them. So maybe it's just every month you put a note in your calendar that once a month you pull out your list and think, what do I want to try next? It can be that simple. And then, of course, you're regularly searching for new ideas. You're following blogs, podcasts. If you guys don't listen to the Teach for the Heart podcast, I hope you try it. We have so many great ideas coming out on our Quick Thought episodes in August. I was just working on those today. So you can listen to podcasts, blogs, Pinterest, whatever you like to do to get new ideas, and you constantly adding them to your list. So making your own plan is a great way of doing it. We would also love, if you're interested, we can guide you in this process and share with you so many more of the strategies that we didn't have time to share here in our Beyond Classroom Management course. Our Beyond Classroom Management course is a workable plan to earn students' respect, increase engagement, build community, help students take responsibility, and so much more. We get into so many more strategies than we had time to here. We talk all the details on morning meetings. We talk about short-term recovery, which is a great way to help students that are frustrated, how to do more engaging activities, develop student leadership, teach the skills they need for success that they often don't have, how to find time for that, a restorative approach, how to deal with challenging parents, and so much more. Beyond Classroom Management is so easy to implement. You can binge watch it or spread it out. And we have it set up that you don't ever lose access. So you can go through it right now, or you can take 3 years and go through it. It's totally up to you. We will help you, just like we did tonight, pick the best strategies to try now and save the rest for later. We'll help you do that. We'll help you organize ideas to easily revisit them, and the notes will already be taken for you. So we take the notes for you so that all you can do is add a couple things. You don't sit down so you can listen while you're doing other things in your day. This is for grades K through 12 teachers. It's designed for those of you that already have a basic control of your class. If you were with us on Monday, I talked about Classroom Management 101. That is the course. If you're like Linda, like I always have such a chaotic classroom, then you want to start with Classroom Management 101. This is the next step after that. If you want to build respect and responsibility and want your students to be engaged, this is for you. Now, the question is, will it work in 2020? This is a crazy year. Yes, if you're in person, you need engaged students that are focused and engaged. I designed this program mainly with in-person in mind. But if you're fully online or hybrid, or you even don't know, as you can see in this training, these strategies work in all of these. They're the same strategies in all 3 places. You just simply have to ask, What does this look like online? And it was super easy. Every single strategy we talked about today, I did not rework this training one bit. It was all the strategies, just all I did. The only thing I did was switch out an activity where students were really like in each other's business with Kahoot, which is more good for social distancing. That's the only change I made. So the same thing with Beyond Classroom Management. Everything is really relevant no matter what. And we're adding this year, this August, we're going to be adding a special Facebook group that will give you even more support. So me and my team are always in the comments in the course and can answer your questions there. So if you're not on Facebook, you'll get support there, but we're also adding a special Facebook to help make sure that you know that you can apply all these things to whatever situation you're dealing with. Bonuses include the 5-day classroom management tune-up, principal reminder cards so you can remember what you're learning. And if you are a person of faith, we have bonus lessons that help apply things to the spiritual aspect. Logic puzzle activity template to help make your worksheets a little more exciting. And like I said, that new support community on Facebook and also within. If you join tonight, then there's also some fast action bonuses. You'll get my Take Heart and Teach ebook for free. You'll also get our training, 50 procedures that will save your sanity for free. And you'll also be entered to win a half-hour coaching session with me. Enrollment includes all 6 modules, the printable manual, lifetime access, all these bonuses. You get a certificate of completion, the community. The price is normally $119, but we want you to be able to afford it. We don't want price to be an object. So we're offering tonight, pay what you can afford pricing, which means that you can use one of these coupon codes to pay whatever price you can afford. We also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, which we're actually extending to 60 days because I don't want you to have to worry about that, okay? I want you to be confident that you'll love it. And if you don't love it for any reason, you can just ask for your money back. If you're interested, hit join now and follow the prompts so that you can get started right now. And we are going to do our Q&A here in just a minute. Let me share a couple, so I can answer questions about anything we talked about today. I can answer questions about Beyond Classroom Management. We can answer do you guys see the join now button? I just want to make sure that that's there and isn't lost. So hopefully you guys can see that and that's working for you. All right, if you have questions about the program, Beyond Classroom Management, if you have questions about anything we learned, then that's in here. Oh, okay, guys, some of you had a question. Is this different than what I talked about on Monday? Yes. On Monday, I talked about Classroom Management 101, which is designed to help you create a chaos-free or rather chaos-light classroom, okay? So it's helped you create a non-chaotic environment where your students can focus, where you can learn together. So if you're having trouble with that, Classroom Management 101, you can head to teachfortheheart.com/CM101 for that. And then Beyond Classroom Management is what we talked about. It's like the sequel. So you can actually get both of them. There'll be an opportunity to get both, or you can choose one. This Classroom Management 101 is more like the basics, and then Beyond Classroom Management builds on it if you already have basic skills. All right, some of you guys are asking about the certificate of attendance. If you head to teachfortheheart.com/certificate2, notice it's teach4 with a number 4. Teachfortheheart.com/certificate2, then you can download your certificate of attendance. If you have any questions on this, or you guys need anything that I'm not able to help you with here, make sure you head to Linda simply email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we will be able to help you with that. Well, a couple of you guys are really fast and you're already joined. Welcome to Emily and Christy. So glad to have you guys. If you run into any trouble as you're signing up, you can ask me about it here, or you can email us as well. Okay, someone's asking, are we going to do the raffle? Yes, I got to do that right now. Okay, we're going to log in and we're going to pick the winner. There are 3 winners that will win an enrollment in Beyond Classroom Management. And if you've already signed up, don't worry, we will refund your purchase. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, let's choose our 3 winners tonight. All right, I have your email address, not your name. So the first winner is Miller94, but it's spelled Millerle 94. I won't read the rest of the email address, but if that's you, congratulations, you've won. Email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. The next winner is Pace Peace Conciliation Services. If that's you, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. And then Karen Messer, congratulations. Email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we'll enroll you in Beyond Classroom Management. All right. Will this webinar be recorded? Yes. And we will hopefully be able to send you out a link tomorrow. So watch your email tomorrow morning. We'll send out the link. If everything goes as planned, we'll have that for you. So you can watch it again, or you can share it with your friends and colleagues. All right. All right, just want to welcome our new Beyond Classroom Management members. Welcome to Virginia. Welcome to Kimberly. Welcome to Lisa and Trista and Cheryl and Suzanne. Some of you guys are joining Beyond Classroom Management, some Beyond Classroom Management 101. Welcome. We are so glad to have you. All right, I'm going to dive into our questions. All right. Welcome, Lisa. So glad to have you. All right, Melissa asks, how do you determine your procedures? What if I can't decide what the best way to do something is? Sometimes I have no idea. Great question. I would ask the teachers at your school is a great place to start. Or if you're in, we have a free Facebook group. If you guys are not part of it, teachfortheheart.com/Facebook, then you can check that out. You can ask it there. So I would ask teachers. In the end, what I like to do is just think what would work well. But if you're really stuck, like I said, I would ask around, ask teachers at your school because they're in your school situation. They're dealing with similar things. But in the end, it's better to have a thought out procedure. Even if it's not perfect, you can always change it later. It's better to decide on something than to not decide. So if you're not sure which of the ideas will work best, decide something. It's always better than nothing. Oh, I forgot to share with you guys, if you are here with a friend, we have a special mystery prize for you. So if you're here with a friend, please email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Copy your friend on the email. If you're here live with a friend, if you're watching the replay, it's too late. You got to be here live. If you're here live with your friend, then email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and say, I'm here with a friend in the subject line, and we will be sure to get you your mystery prize. All right, let's see what other questions we have. You know, it is officially 9:30, so if you need to get off now, that's totally fine. You can go ahead and download your certificate at teachfortheheart.com/certificate2. But I'm going to stay on and answer questions. And I will say these special fast action bonuses, the coaching call, the ebook, and the 50 procedures training, those will be available for about another hour after this training ends. Or actually, honestly, through the evening. If you join at any point in this evening, I know sometimes it takes a few minutes to get, you want to read everything, you want to get through the page, that's okay. As long as you join this evening, you'll still be eligible for those special bonuses, and I'll try to send them out tomorrow. Speaking of which, welcome to Cynthia and Denise and Margie and Stephanie and Barbara. We're so glad to have you. Let's see, did I miss anybody else? Looks like I did. Yes, let's see. Welcome also to Linda and to Kathy and to Christy and to Nadia. Welcome. We're so glad to have you. It's awesome to see you guys joining us. Jeanette asks, how much do you incorporate whole brain teaching into your teaching? Every lesson, ? Okay, so whole brain teaching is actually like an entire system, and some teachers use that entire framework. I don't, but I like to incorporate it here and there. So when I was teaching recently, I was doing a long-term sub-position. I used it in certain days, and certain days I didn't. So I used it as a way to break things up. I think you can experiment with it and see how well it works for you and your students. So you can use it all the time if you want, or you can just do it as like today's activity. We're going to be doing the, partner sharing. So it's really up to you what works with you. Sally says, I was here on the training on Monday. That certificate, Sally, is at teachfortheheart.com/certificate. Today's certificate is at teachfortheheart.com/certificate2. We will have a replay available. Hopefully we'll send out the link tomorrow. Lisa asks, where do you get the podcast? Our podcast is called the Teach for the Heart podcast. If you go to teachfortheheart.com, there's a podcast link at the top, or you can search for us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite podcast app is. All right, great question here. What natural consequences do I give to online elementary school students? I would recommend talking with your school about that and other teachers and see kind of what their expectation is, because it is a little bit unique online. But one thing that you can, obviously, if it's an academic thing, it might be academic consequences, but you can also use rewards and a lack of reward as a consequence. So maybe there's something that everyone gets to participate in, or something that they get to do virtually, or whatever the case, or something they're working towards. And you can have it a consequence be not getting this reward or not getting the next step towards something. So if you can't think of actual consequences that make sense in your situation, then you can do that. All right, let's see a few other questions. All right. I'm struggling with how to incorporate morning meetings at the high school level. I see 6 classes a day for 52 minutes each. Would I hold a meeting for each one? If so, how do I justify using instructional time for it? All right. I don't know if I would recommend doing, if you want to do morning meetings in that situation, I would probably do it once a week for 10 to 15 minutes. You can only justify a certain percentage of time for this. You certainly cannot do it every day. Like, you just can't afford that instructional time. But if you do it, like I said, a 10 to 15 minute meeting once a week, then that could be worth it. And you're still developing that classroom community, and it's in a good ratio with the rest of what you're doing. And keep in mind, I don't know if I explained this, that part of morning meeting is practicing skills you're learning, like academic skills. And you're also teaching explicitly other skills that students need for success, like study skills. And so that's really important. So you're teaching students a lot of these things. So hopefully that's helpful. Welcome to Beyond Classroom Management. Welcome to Tina and Rosanna and Anna and Constance and Melanie and Catherine and Patricia and Christine, Tiffany, Sarah, Marie. Oh my goodness, I can't even keep track of you guys all. Welcome. We are so glad to have you. Some of you guys are joining us in Beyond Classroom Management. Some of you are getting the bundle. That's awesome. We're so glad to have you. If anyone's having any trouble or anything's going wrong with coupons or anything like that, you can email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Please be patient with our wonderful customer experience managers, Alex and Sarah. The queue has been out of control this week because we've done these 2 webinars. We had 1,700 teachers on Monday. We had over 700 tonight. And so it's been very busy for them. So we promise we'll get back to you. It just may take a little bit of time. All right, I can stay on and answer a few more questions. So if you have a question, I want to make sure I'm answering the ones that that are still on. So if you're still on and I haven't answered your question yet, you can ask it again if you'd like. Nancy says, will I get an email verifying that I purchased the course? Yes, you should. If you do not get an email, you probably entered your email address wrong, or it might have gone to spam. So email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and we can check that out for you. All right. Lynn says, what is short-term recovery and does it relate to self-regulation? Yeah, short-term recovery is a strategy we teach in Beyond Classroom Management. I think it actually comes from Love and Logic, where what you do is when students are being disruptive to the class, so specifically in-person teaching, but you can modify this for online too. If they're being disruptive to the class, you have to preserve your classroom for the rest of the students. And so you have a place that they can go. It's typically in this classroom or in the office, there's this quiet spot that they can go to calm down, and then you want them to come back as soon as possible, but back when they're ready to re-enter class. And we teach more details about that in the course, but that is. Norma, you're saying it's not taking your coupon offer. Are you using, it's a Ford 50, a Ford 75, or a Ford 100 with no space? So maybe try it again, and if it's not working, head to linda@teachfortheheart.com, email us, and we will help you. Let's see. Do you have a list of I statements for ideas for us? Oh my goodness, I do. It's in Beyond Classroom Management. Let me see how many of them I can remember. I've used a few of them. I said, I give full credit to work that's turned in on time. I call on students that raise their hand. I listen to students who talk respectfully. I do that with my kids all the time. I listen when you talk respectfully, or I'll listen when your voice is calm like mine, for students that are upset. I argue. The argue one you can have a little bit of fun with. You can say, I don't argue, or you can say something like, I only argue on the weekends, or I only argue at 5 o'clock and on the weekends. Oh, Mrs. Cardamus, we're not here at that time. I know that's the point, it's kind of the idea of that. So kind of whatever it is, those are a few of the kind of more common ones, but you can kind of think through, how do I respond? Like what do I do when in these different situations? Let's see, if you do end up arguing with the student, how do you reconcile with them? Well, it depends on the situation. Sometimes when we're arguing with a student, it's nothing necessarily needs to be reconciled. It's just we're like spending all this time, like we're feeling like we have to defend ourselves. So sometimes it's not an argument. It's just more of like we are spending all this time like trying to prove ourselves to them, which is just not actually helpful because we can almost actually satisfy them. They just want to argue for the sake of arguing. So in that case, you don't necessarily need to reconcile. You just need to realize, okay, I need to just stop doing this. If you do get in an argument and you feel like the relationship is hurt, then I recommend going to that student and just being honest. Just say, I'm sorry, I did not handle that right. I let my emotions get out of control. Will you forgive me? And just be really honest with them. I think that can really help earn their respect back. And then go on from there and just say, hey, from now on, like I care too much to argue with you. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then handle it differently. Brian asks, are my books available on Audible? No, they're not. I've thought about doing that and just haven't had the opportunity yet. So thanks for that encouragement in that regard. They are on Amazon though. And they're also available on our website at teachfortheheart.com under books. How do you avoid the jealous comment from other students who see you targeting certain students with a 2x10 strategy? That's a great question. I'd be interested if anyone else has experience with that. I kind of think that's probably not going to happen as often as you think because you're not necessarily like making this super obvious. You're just kind of stopping by and saying something real quick to them. Other students may or may not even pick up on it. But if someone is jealous, then that means that they want your attention. And so just maybe make a little bit of an effort to give them some attention too, and I think that could go a long way. Any recommendations for setting up expectations for a hybrid school model? I will see my students in 2 parts every other day. Yes. So it depends how you're doing this, but yeah, I would really, really teach your procedures very clearly. So when you're with you need to clearly, you can't afford to waste time and students need to know what they're doing when they're home. So you got to teach your procedures and then you have to practice with them. If they're going to be doing stuff at home and you're not going to be there with them because you're going to be with other students, then I would practice in person what you want them to do at home. Honestly, you might take the whole first few days that you're together and not actually be learning much. You might just be practicing what to do at home, and what you expect from them. Actually have them do it. If they're able to, if they have the technology, have them get it out, have them practice it, get them as prepared as they be, practice it, correct. If they do it wrong, have them redo it. If they turn in something wrong, have them redo it so that you can really, really work with them in that way. All right, I can answer just a couple more questions. So if you still have one, once again, if you haven't put it in recently, you can ask it again. It looks like I have a few left. Welcome though to Susan and Gwen and Sandra and Dawn, Amy, Ashelle. Welcome to most of you Beyond Classroom Management, some of you Classroom Management 101. Welcome to Anna and Rosanna and Tina, Kim, Patricia, Allison, Amanda, and Debbie. This is awesome. We're so glad to have all of you. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. I apologize if I did. All right, couple more questions. If we call on a student, but he does not respond, what should we do in a virtual classroom? It depends. It might be, sometimes it's good to just give students the benefit of the doubt and, talk to them later. I would probably, if this were me, I would probably try one more time, hey, did you hear me? If they're not responding, I would probably just move on. You could maybe say something to the class I'm going to have to check in with them and see what's going on. So that way they know that you're aware of what's happening and you're not just letting it go. But then you're also giving them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that maybe there's a technology issue, maybe they can't hear, maybe there is a legitimate reason they didn't respond. But then I'd follow up with them either, with an email or something later and just say, hey, I noticed that I was calling you and you were answering with something wrong. I like to ask students when I'm suspicious that something's not right. I like to ask them can I help with something or is something wrong? I like to, like I said, give them that benefit of the doubt. And in some cases there is, in some cases they're just no, I wasn't paying attention. And then they kind of, once again, you're just showing them I see, and this isn't okay. We need to fix this. This can't continue. Does that make sense? Any special tips for teaching wearing a mask? I'm not sure exactly which of the challenges you're dealing with, but one thing that I have seen that you might want to consider is face shields, especially if so much of teaching is facial expression and nuance. So if you haven't seen those clear face shields that go here and you can see your face through them, if I was teaching, I would definitely at least try one of those out. I don't know how comfortable I mean, none of this is comfortable, but I don't know if it's like prohibitive, but maybe at the least you could switch between that and a mask. Like at least when you're, giving direct instruction, maybe you can wear that instead. Maybe that would be somewhat helpful. All right, does the course have strategies for me as an external teacher who only sees the students an hour every 2 weeks? I teach scripture to year 7 and 8. Yes, this course, in other words, you're like a special teacher that sees a bunch of different students at different times. So like this would also apply to probably art teachers, music teachers. I would say yes. I mean, things are going to look a little bit different in those classes, but especially since you teach scripture, I would say absolutely. The relationship is a little different. You don't have as much time for some of these things. So some of the strategies aren't going to, like, you're probably not going to do a morning meeting if you see them once every 2 weeks. But a lot of the strategies will be helpful. And remember, we have a guarantee. So if you get in there, you have 60 days to look in there, see if it's, and if you're like, you know what, I actually didn't find this as helpful as I thought it would, then we totally understand. The certificate for today is at teachfortheheart.com/certificate2. All right, I think I answered all their questions. I guess this is our last call if there's any final questions that we can answer, and then we'll see you later. Welcome, though, to Catherine and Norma and Lisa and Rosalind, Constance and Susan. Oh, we're so glad to have all of you. This is so wonderful. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to see you. If you joined tonight, then I will hopefully send out the bonuses tomorrow. If you need a name on your certificate, the certificate is purposely blank. You can download it, add your own name and signature. If that does not work for you, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. It might take us a few days to get back to you, but we will help you out. So email us, let us know what you need. If you need anything that we weren't able to help you with, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. As I said, our queue is overflowing right now, but we will get through it. We will get back to you. Just please be patient with us. And if you're wanting to join, but haven't gotten a chance yet, you can get the fast action bonuses all throughout this evening. I will probably check it tomorrow morning and send things out then. So you can check that out beyond classroom management. We would love to see you in there. And then finally, the Afford promotion will be available if you need more time for another week. So we'll send out reminder emails and let you know when that's about to expire so that you don't miss it. Well, thank you guys again so much. It was such a pleasure to be with you. I hope that we'll stick with us, that we'll be able to stay in touch. Join us over on the podcast. And those of you that joined tonight, we'll see you inside the programs. Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening.